Hello, Steelers Nation, and welcome to episode number 120 of the Steel City Insider podcast. I'm one of your hosts here today, Jeremy Ritz, alongside the Jim Wexell, the insider himself, and we are going to get you ready for this weekend's final preseason contest against the Lions. And Jim, let's not waste any time. We're jumping right in. That's our new tactic here with our podcast. But I got to ask you, is Broderick Jones regressing? And should we be concerned about his play?
You should be concerned, yes. Because, well, the alternative is an injured rookie. Fautano has a knee, and he's not getting the reps that he needs. They want to play him at right tackle. They want to play Broderick at left tackle, and Broderick, both of those guys. Dan Moore's your best tackle.
In the
what's funny is Russ was talking yesterday to the media, and he said one of the reasons he came here was the great Broderick Jones. That tells you a lot about Russell. I mean, he knows where the problem is. You know where the problem is, and he's going right at it with positivity. He wants Broderick to know he appreciates him. He thinks he knows he can play. And now, is Broderick injured? That's the question, because Broderick can play, and I doubt he's regressing, and I doubt it's coaching. It has to be the injury. And we talked about this previously, that I asked Broderick, is this brace hurting you? And he said no, but I can't wait to get it off. Mm-hmm. So that kind of tells you it is hurting him, but he's not going to use it as an excuse. Tomlin was asked this week. Tomlin said, we don't make excuses. Broderick was asked after the game to comment. He said, I have to go get treatment. Sorry. Broderick never turns down media. He's a tough guy that way. No matter how badly he plays, he'll talk and he'll be civil. He won't be happy sometimes, offensive lineman, but that was different than how he, turning down a media request meant he had to go get treatment. Yeah. So there's a problem with his right elbow.
Yeah.
So anyway, I would look at that as how much pain can he withstand? I think that's the bigger question. And, with Russell backing him, he's going to work hard. Everybody's backing Broderick. Everyone liked Broderick. I think it does put in question the immediate move to left tackle that we suspected when Jerry Dulac reported that Fautano was going to be the right tackle.
Okay.
So that's the question. I don't know that the offensive line was that bad. Mm-hmm. Broderick was. And he was going against a beast. Greg Rousseau, as Broderick's being pummeled on local talk radio, they're minimizing the effect of Greg Rousseau because he only had 5 sacks last year. But he was a former first-round pick. He was picked in the first round when he was 20 years old. So he's only 24 now in his 4th year. Mm-hmm. 2 years ago, he had 8 sacks. Last year, he did only have 5, but he had 18 quarterback hits to lead the Bills. Mm-hmm. Now, he's 24. He's 6'7", 265. He manhandled Broderick. 2.5 sacks in 3 series. Then Broderick got beat by his replacement. He didn't give up a sack, but he got his quarterback pummeled. Quarterback got rid of the ball. So let's give a little credit to Greg Rousseau. Let's realize that it's a young guy moving into his potential. And Broderick's still only 23 too. So I don't know about a regression. I would definitely look at the injury.
Yeah. And that's where you have to look at the totality of the evidence here, because, one preseason game shouldn't be enough to draw a final conclusion on the player. We have to look at what he did last year. And, he is 23 years old. He is getting better, which makes me think that it's more of an injury thing than it's anything else. Because how do you go from performing how you did in year 1 to now everybody wants to run you out of town and put you on the bench? So I think it's a gross action.
Everybody wants to run the O-line coach out of town.
Yeah.
That's the blame for the regression, not the player, because we know how good he is. So.
Yeah, there's always got to be somebody to blame. That's what I noticed.
I read Bad Rad's book. Dan Radakovich became the offensive line coach in 1974. He had been the defensive line coach, and he built the steel curtain. He told Chuck Noll, you got to get Greenwood. You got to get Greenwood out there. You got to get Dwight White out there. You got to get these old guys off the line. and Chuck, and then he they timed all their 40s. And he put the line together as constituted. It became the Steel Curtain. I believe that was 1971. Well, he left to coach college, and then he came back with some ideas. He knew Chuck needed an offensive line coach. He became the O-line coach. He had some ideas about tight jerseys. I don't know if he put grease on the jerseys or not, but he had some ideas, and he told Chuck how to put the line together, and it became the line that won Super Bowls. And so anyway, he went to I believe it was a Senior Bowl, and in his book he recounted running into John Madden. John Madden said, "You're going to be the O-line coach. Why do you want to do that? Everybody blames the O-line coach for everything." And that was 1974. Now I think more the offensive coordinator gets blamed for everything, but here we are blaming Pat Meyer. Hey, it might be his fault. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a Mike Munchak guy. Anybody who's been taught by Joe Moore, I want that guy. Anybody Pittsburgh related. Joe Moore was Pitt's O-line coach. They named college awards after Joe Moore. You want his proteges. You want people who've been taught by him. Mm-hmm. So it's I'm not running Pat Meyer out of town, but I'm raising an eyebrow looking at him like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's stick with the O-line, Jim, and I want to talk the center position because it's my favorite position along the offensive line. But an injury at that position has now forced Zach Frazier into that starting role, which he started every game out there in Morgantown. But let's talk about Frazier. Has performed nicely over these first two preseason games. How do you see his transition and performance playing out as the starter?
This is a guy, I think he listed his hobbies at WVU as watching game tape with my dad and yelling out the calls because his dad was a center too. So, I mean, I don't know that I remember Marquise Pouncey before his first game. He was a nervous wreck, and Pounce is a cool guy to talk to all the time, except the week before the opener when he became the first center. I forget, like since 1956, so do the math, 2010. And that's the first rookie to start at center in the opener. And Kendrick Green also, I think I wrote or maybe talked about here that Zach will be the first since Pouncey, but I asked James Daniels about this. Why is it so difficult for a rookie to start at center? And he said, well, KG did too. So I forgot about Kendrick Green. Mm-hmm. They did win the opener with Kendrick Green started at center in his rookie debut. So Zach will be the third guy in 70 years to do it. And they're 2-0 in those games. I don't know what Jim Taylor did in 1956. I should look that up to see if they won that. I could look it up right now. But anyway, Zach looks good in preseason. I think we all agree. We see his mobility. We see his strength. We see that wrestling leverage, that made him a great high school champion wrestler. So I think the injury to Nate Herbig, it hastens the move that we all knew was going to happen. And you hate to say this is fortuitous because Nate Herbig's injury is going to hurt the team depth-wise. Mm-hmm. Nate's a good guy to back up all three. He has the demeanor, the temperament to accept the demotion from veteran to letting the rookie start. He would help the rookie. He's a good dude. Nate, we all like Nate. We all like interviewing him. He's Nick's older brother. He likes to tell stories about Nick. We go to Nate to talk about Nick, and Nate's cool with that.
Yeah.
And this was difficult camp to interview a cool guy who, we're all like waiting for Zach Frazier. We all want to say, what's it like to do this and know you're going to be second string soon, Yeah. And he was cool. So you hate to see him get injured and get his season wiped out. So what does that do now to the interior line? Somebody asked Tomlin, is it Mason McCormick? Because McCormick played, 100,000 games at left guard for South Dakota State. Mm-hmm. 6 years, with the COVID rule, you could play 6 years. And they were all left guard, but he was always practiced at center, always was the emergency center just in case. So, the draftniks felt he was a center coming out. And the Steelers drafted him. So someone asked Tomlin, is Mason McCormick the backup center now? He said, nah, and he pivoted to Spencer Anderson. He didn't say Spencer Anderson
Mhm.
was the backup center, but he mentioned him. And Spencer Anderson could play all five positions. And what that does, that locks up a roster spot for Dylan Cook for sure, because you and I have talked about keeping 10 or keeping
Mhm.
9. Now you keep 9. Ryan McCullum could be the 10th guy. Ryan McCullum was the practice squad center the last 2 years,
Mhm.
and they like Ryan, and he comes off. He's the first third stringer off the third teamer off the to get on the second line. So he now is a backup center, an emergency center, and they can keep him on the practice squad and call him up if need be. Spencer Anderson's your in-game guy. James Daniels played center, and Isaac Seumalo played center in college. I mean,
Mhm.
they have emergency guys, so it's not going to be a problem. But you still like Nate as that backup to all three, veteran NFL. He's played all three in the NFL. So you can keep Dylan Cook, and then we could talk about what does that do if you only keep 9. Now you
Mhm.
can keep Fitzpatrick and or Jack Coletto, things like that can be the 25th offensive guy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a telling indicator when the first chunk of our podcast is spent talking about the offensive line, and we might as well just hit on quarterback right now before we talk about some holes that are still existing on this team. But following that game against the Bills, a lot of discussion around the performance of Russell Wilson being sacked. Obviously, that's attributed to the play of Broderick Jones. Right, we're not going to tag the entire offensive line there. But let's talk about the performance of Wilson, what it means moving forward. Was that just a fluke? Fields played okay, still had some misses, but let's talk about the state of the quarterback position at this juncture.
Yeah, everybody's talking about the quarterback position, but give Russell a minute. I mean, that was really his first action. That was his first preseason action. Sat out a lot of camp. Really wasn't under fire at camp. Didn't show him the mobility he showed in the spring. And
Mhm.
I know spring ball doesn't mean anything, but when you see a guy who's mobile, he's getting to the sticks, he's scrambling, he's outrunning defenders who have speed. He has speed, whether they have pads on or not. And he's not showing that at all. So we still need to see that, as he recovers from that calf. So I think that'll be put to more use as we go along. And he was 8 for 10. And
Mhm.
I know Kenny Pickett had some 8 for 10s, and we praised him. I went back to see my lead I was writing my notes column for Steelers Digest. And I said, I had to do this at the same time last year, and I know they were better last year. Well, what was I raving about last year? It was a win over the Bills, who started Josh Allen, and the Steelers beat them to go 2-0. And of course, raving about Kenny Pickett. He something like 8 for 10, something like that. And so, I mean, we were raving, and then the team became mediocre. I know this offense is better than it was last year.
Mhm.
I don't want to hear about Deontay Johnson. Don't want to hear that that was a bad trade. They have a starting corner. Imagine if they had the hole at cornerback right now, and they're still lacking depth as is.
Mhm.
We're worried about Corey Trice. Can he handle it if he has to step in? So without Dante Jackson, they'd really be hurting.
Mhm.
So I don't want to hear about Deontay Johnson and his comeback routes where he catches the ball and he keeps running back. Do we want to see that again? It was that. I mean, do people miss that play that badly
Or he leaves it on the turf and runs.
and doesn't block and then goes and yells at the coordinator, gets him fired, yells at the quarterback, gets him yanked? Every time he yelled at somebody in the locker room, we hear later that guy was fired. So I'm not going to miss that. So I think this is a better offense.
Yeah.
And
So
so I'm not going to get all worried about 0-2 losing to the Bills without Josh Allen, because last year they beat the Bills with Josh Allen.
yeah. Yeah, it's a stark contrast to last year. I remember that Bills game. Pickett, had some insanely high completion percentage. I think he threw 2 touchdowns, one the Pat Freiermuth. I could still see it in my head, but yeah, they were world beaters. But we saw how that turned out because they got their, pardon my language, asses handed to them against San Francisco week 1. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what they do week 1 against the Falcons. But Jim, let's shift over to holes on this team. And you referenced that just a few minutes ago, but there are still some holes that this team has. How will they address them? Start a cornerback. Let's go there.
Did you say corner?
Corner, yeah.
Well, you mean the nickel,
Nickel.
the slot?
Nickel. Yep.
Well, I mean there's a depth question to begin with, as we said,
Hmm.
and Corey Trice, we don't know yet. The expectations are we're hopeful because he's a great body. I mean, you're looking at that Legion of Boom defense all over again. Bring in Russ Wilson. Hey, let's bring Bobby Wagner back too. Bring beast mode back.
Yeah.
So anyway, you got the big corners and the nickel. And nickel is the big question because they're not going to move Corey Trice and they're not going to move Dante Jackson into that nickel spot. It's Beanie Bishop, the undrafted rookie, is the hopeful. We've seen, Graylin Arnold gave us a lot of hope, but then when he had his week on the job, when Beanie was hurt, he was tentative in practice and then he got hurt. So we really did. I don't think fans really got to saw him play in the game, but I got to see his last week of practice. He was tentative. He wasn't the guy that he was that first week as the Beanie's backup.
Hmm.
So then Thomas Graham steps up. He's an NFL veteran, I believe 5 years. He's bounced around, but he knows how to get through August, and it shows. Does that mean he can get through September? I mean, he's showing, I like his toughness, his tenacity, his confidence, but Beanie's faster. And they want Beanie to be one of the gunners too.
Hmm.
Beanie's got 4.39 speed, and Beanie's a physical player. I mean, he went to WVU, right?
Yeah.
He's got to be a physical player, right? He's a Mountaineer. I'm
Couchburn.
I'm a Panther. I'm a Panther too, and so but I respect WVU just like I respect Penn State. So don't at me about college football. I really am not that. I don't have that great allegiance, but I respect our locals. I mean, they're tough Western Pennsylvania types,
Yeah.
and so Beanie is well, he's from Kentucky, and I respect Kentucky kids too because my daughter's boyfriend is Kentuckian.
Yeah.
Just throw that personal note in there. But
Hey,
anyway,
hey, real
to see
fast.
Casey,
Can I so
what?
while we're talking about Western PA, did I see something where your daughter was inducted into the Hall of Fame?
Thank you for throwing that in there,
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Norwin High School Hall of Fame. Yeah, September 27th. She'll be coming in and making a speech. Yeah.
I got to give an
Thank you.
opportunity to plug the Whippeal. So
Well, she's at 2 years. This is her second year of eligibility, and my sister Chris got into that Hall of Fame, and hey, I don't want to denigrate what my daughter did, but my sister Chris had even higher credentials. And because of me, the voters knew my name. So it hurt my sister. So I was worried it would hurt my daughter, but there's younger people on the committee now because I went to Norwin and I was a sports editor in Irwin that covered Norwin. And sometimes you got to be critical and you don't make a lot of friends when you're critical in high school. I stuck to ripping the coaches mainly. That's why I said, Pat Meyer's performance at right tackle for the Steelers wasn't Broderick Jones's fault, right?
I just had a vision of a high school age Jim Wexell and what
Oh,
that was like. I bet you were
disastrous. It was
pistol.
disastrous.
Oh
Anyway,
man.
where were we? Beanie Bishop. Yeah,
Beanie
Beanie.
Bishop.
So Beanie's going to get the look. I believe, as Tomlin said the other day, this is a big week for Beanie. This is an undrafted rookie that they're counting on to basically it's a starting position, right? The nickel slot. There's so much nickel being played. They don't use the nose tackle as much. They take the nose tackle out and put the nickel corner in to give them 5 DBs, right?
Mhm.
So it's a big week for Beanie. Thomas Graham has showed that he could do it, I believe, in an emergency. If
Mhm.
if Beanie shows that he can't handle it. But I believe, Beanie is going to be force fed. And that's going to be a question mark for a while until, Cam Sutton doesn't return until midway after his suspension.
Yeah.
So he'll be halfway through the season. But for the first half of the season, they need an undrafted rookie out of WVU to handle it, just like their second round pick out of WVU. It's a big
Yeah.
year for the Mountaineers
Yeah.
and the Steelers, right?
What an opportunity too to come in as undrafted guy and just the way things are falling at that nickel spot. I mean, he's got a hell of an opportunity here to, if he steps up, he could create a spot for himself for quite some time. So
Well,
very
that's part of the reason he signed here.
mhm.
These guys that don't get drafted in the guys who get you almost don't want to be drafted in the seventh round.
Hmm.
You could say you were drafted, but you don't have your pick of the team where to go
Yeah.
as an eighth rounder, as a free agent. You can let the bargaining begin, like John Rice Plumlee. Man, he got the biggest undrafted contract in Steelers history,
Hmm.
35 grand bonus.
Yeah.
That's a lot more than the seventh rounder got.
Yeah.
But you can pick your team and you can negotiate. And he said he came to the Steelers because of that hole at nickel and what Mike Tomlin was talking to him about. And Mike Tomlin's, he's a man of his word.
Hmm.
I mean, he can't promise James Harrison. If TJ Watt's playing well as a rookie, James Harrison is not going to play, even though Mike Tomlin told him, you're probably going to play. You're going to play. TJ Watt came on. Mike couldn't deny TJ Watt. Who
Yeah.
could? So, Beanie Bishop is making Mike look good on his word right now because that nickel spot has remained wide open.
Okay. Let's work on bringing this home here. Just a couple more positions to talk about holes, but running back, unfortunate injury to Jalen Warren. I can't imagine that guy being out too long, just based on his work ethic and probably how he's rehabbing. But what are they going to do there?
Well, Jonathan Ward impressed me the most of that second tier. I don't know if Cordero Patterson makes the team. I assume he will, but he hasn't shown much as that third running back yet. He's still working his way back into shape. I mean, he's a kickoff returner, uh, possibly a Hall of Fame kickoff returner, but he's 33 now.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I think they're going to need a legit running back there, not someone to run gadgets like Patterson does for Arthur Smith, right?
Hmm.
So Jonathan Ward has showed me the most. However, he has a hamstring issue. He's practicing this week because he told me, I know what it's like to scratch and claw in this league. I've been doing it for 5 years, making rosters. I can't sit out. I
Hmm.
can't let it get healthy like Jalen Warren. I don't know if it's as severe as Jalen Warren, but he knows that they're looking for an excuse to cut you and call on LaMichael Perine.
Yeah.
Now, Perine looked good last. I mean, he's the big back.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
thought he looked decent too. Just
yeah,
out there on some of those outside runs. He looked
yeah.
strong and he looked fast.
Well, you look at him at practice and he takes that outside pitch and he plants his leg and he cuts it up and he runs downhill. Excuse me. And you think of Derrick Henry. Of
Hmm.
course, he's not Derrick Henry, but Derrick Henry played for Arthur Smith, right?
Hmm.
So would they choose a back who most resembles Derrick Henry? Probably. I think they're going to choose LaMichael Perine, cousin of Samaje Perine. Am I
Hmm.
pronouncing that?
Yeah. You're
He
asking
gets.
me how to pronounce something? You're asking
Hey,
me.
man, you got to help me and I help you. Come on, man. Is it Samaje? All you got to do is say, yeah, you got it right,
Yep,
Jim.
you're right, Jim.
He scored 3 TDs one game for the Bengals against the Steelers. He was a big back
Yeah.
out of Oklahoma. This is his cousin. He's not as big as his cousin, but LaMichael, you saw him. He's 220 pounds. He gives them that plant cut
Hmm.
downhill run guy. So I think he's going to get the call. I don't know how they're going to work it roster wise, but we'll see. It'll be a position to watch in this upcoming preseason game.
Hmm.
And then it'll depend on Jalen's recovery for
Hmm.
the open. Yeah.
And you'd have to think with the fact that he was on the Kansas City roster and has some experience, just having that veteran component that gives him a little bit more of an inside track to making the roster. But I'd be okay with a couple of those runs every game, because he once he gets moving, it's hard to bring him down.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So,
like him. He got a ring from Kansas City.
hmm.
He played in the playoff games, didn't play in the Super Bowl.
Hmm.
Uh, And Jonathan Ward has also NFL playing experience too. So Dejon Edwards, the undrafted rookie out of Georgia, he
Yeah,
looks good too. I mean,
yeah,
I think he's definitely practice squad bound at least. But let's not say he doesn't have a chance at this because we all kind of wrote him off after the first day backs on backers. He got crushed the first time and he asked for a repeat. Tomlin said no, go sit. So he was so far away as a blocker back then that we kind of wrote him off. But man, he showed his running skills, hasn't he?
yeah. He has. And he was the guy
Number
that impressed me.
31.
Yeah, impressed me at camp. So I would like to
And
see it.
Champlin, I like Champlin too, number 33.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
looked okay as well.
yeah.
So Jim, we got I know you wanted to talk gunners and wide receivers, so we'll hit those two spots, then we'll close this thing up.
Yeah, boy, we're making a lot of we're getting a long podcast out of the gunner position, aren't we? Tomo was talking about what he missed about Miles Boykin. Bob Labriola asked him, and he said Miles Boykin, receivers make good gunners because they know how to get free at the line of scrimmage, and that's what you need best. And then Miles Boykin had the long arms to keep the jammer, the guy who's blocking him for the punt returner. Uh, he had long arms to keep those hands off his body. So once he broke free from the line, he could get down all the way. And Miles Boykin was a tremendous gunner, and James Pierre was a good gunner too.
Mhm.
So you're looking at a special teams coverage unit that has 5 potential Pro Bowlers. Miles Killebrew was a Pro Bowler last year, right, in coverage.
Mhm.
Tyler Matakevich has been the special teams captain at Buffalo, and he was the special teams ace coverage guy for the Steelers. And then when he left in free agency, they replaced him with Miles Killebrew. Now they have both, right? Mark Robinson looked like a Pro Bowl potential last week. He was wrecking some returns last week, if you recall.
Mhm.
So Mark Robinson has stepped up his game. And then you've got Cam Johnson, Pro Bowl, All-Pro type punter, hasn't been to the Pro Bowl yet. He had the same exact net punting average as the Pro Bowler last year, so he could break through. And Chris Boswell has made a Pro Bowl, and Cordero Patterson's a potential Hall of Fame kickoff returner. I think Austin is going to be your punt returner. So it's an A+ special teams unit, but they have to find gunners to replace Miles Boykin and James Pierre.
Mhm.
As Fitzpatrick is a receiver. And if you count Roman Wilson, you're looking at 7 receivers with the legitimate chance of making a roster. So I think Quez Watkins is really on the bubble because it looks like they want Des Fitzpatrick to make this team as the gunner, because he looks like he's been the starting gunner for 2 games.
Mhm.
And he is a receiver like Tomlin wants. He has long arms. And he has experience. He did pretty well last year. He was up and down off the practice squad, and he showed pretty well as a gunner last year. And he played the gunner. He made a tackle last week and caught a nice pass. So I mean, he's a good receiver too. So it looks like Des Fitzpatrick is going to lock one of those gunner spots up, and the other one is going to be either Beanie or Ryan Watts, I think.
Okay.
Ryan Watts, I don't know if you can have him active on game day, because I asked Terrell Austin, how's he look? Does he look like a converted corner playing safety? And he goes, pretty much, Austin didn't say these words, but it's pretty much what he said is he doesn't know what he's doing, but I like his tackling ability. I like his willingness to hit in the hole. And we saw that. But it sounded like he didn't have a clue what he was doing. And that's understandable.
Yeah,
Safety's
rookie.
a complex position.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ryan Watts or Beanie, and I think they want Beanie because Beanie's closer to understanding his role on the field and will be active on game day.
Okay. And then Jim, we'll close it up with this. We don't need to spend a ton of time on it because we already have. But Brandon Aiyuk, is that happening? I know.
Exhausted.
Aiyuk fatigue.
Well, somebody made a good point on the message board that, last year, I got the Bosa right for San Francisco, Nick Bosa. Come on, man. Say yeah.
Yes. Yes, Jim.
Right. All right. Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa. Yeah, I should study around the league more than analyzing the third string gunner for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But anyway, Bosa was holding out last year, and the 49ers collapsed in the last week before the season.
Mhm.
And so they're not going to collapse. And Brandon Aiyuk is counting on another collapse, Bosa-like collapse. So the trade, if it happens, will happen in the first or second week of the season.
Okay.
So, this is going from a week before the draft, or March, probably in free agency was when this talk started about Aiyuk going to the Steelers. It probably started last year in the opener when he torched them.
Yeah. Yeah, I was there for that one. That was bad.
So this talk will continue, it sounds like, until the first, second week, because the 49ers are not going to cave like they did last year with Bosa. That's the way it was described to me by a guy that lives in San Francisco. So
Okay.
so
All right.
again next week.
We covered quite a bit here in episode number 120. And wow, when we're back
80 of them have been spent talking about Aiyuk.
I know, yeah, really. It is the Aiyuk Insider podcast. But we'll be back here next week for 121. We'll talk about the Lions game, and then really we're not that far away from the opener. So it's fast and furious coming along here. Jim, anything you want to plug on your site, book, anything?
I got a book coming out October 1st, and there'll be all kind of events. A nice coffee table book on the illustrated timeline. Pittsburgh Steelers, an illustrated timeline. Pictures, stories, research, fun, easy to read. Big coffee table book, Christmas present. But that comes out October 1st.
All right, October 1st for that one. And that's going to do it. We'll see you back here next week for episode number 121. Like, subscribe, comment, and have a great week. Jim, take care.
You too, Jeremy. See you, bud.